Hello everyone, welcome back to MathLAB programming course. In this part, I'm going to show you one of the most important subjects in our course, and it is creating vectors with random numbers. All right, first, before we get into vectors, it's better that we ease our way into random numbers and random functions through scalar cases. So if you want to calculate a function which has random elements in it, the way to create one is through using rand function. Okay, so if I type rand and hit enter, it will create a number for me. How about if I do it again? You'll see that the result is different. Each time that you type rand and do it again, you will get a new result, and that's the way it's designed. We're telling it to give us random numbers. Let me clear the screen. We're going to extend the same thing into vector concepts. If we need a vector with random functions, we can open parentheses, and MATLAB gives us some examples how we can do it. Rand n and rand mn, and if you type help, it will give you how we can do it. So rand of n returns an n by n matrix containing something that we're gonna cover later, but the rand m and n is something that we're interested at the moment. So what it does, I encourage you to read it thoroughly so you can get the most out of it. But for now, the rand, it accepts two parameters. The first one, I type 1, and the second one, let's go with 8. Or no, not 8, 4. Let's just start with something small. Rand 1 and 4. Let's see what happened. If I type it, it creates a vector with 1 row and 4 columns or elements. 1 row, 4 columns, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so if I do the same thing again, you will see that now the numbers are different. How about now? Different, different, and different. So the same way that the rand function created scalars which are different, the rand, when defined for vectors, is also going to create new and unrepeated values and vectors. So let me clear up the screen. I can also do 2 multiplied by rand of 1 to 5. So if I do that, and before let me do rand of 5 so you can see what's the result, and then if I make 2 times of that, it's going to create it seamlessly for me. The sign of rand of 1 and 3, 1 and 4 is going to be created as well. Okay, so any functions that we learned so far is going to be applicable here too. Now you might have guessed that what happens if I go with this one and change this one to 2? Well, you can have a sneak peek of that, and you will see that it's going to create a matrix, and we're going to work with that in coming sessions. But you have guessed that rand is actually a fast way to create a matrix. Let me clear the screen. Occasionally, you might be asked to create some vectors with unrepeated numbers, okay? So if you want to create something which you're sure there is no repeated items in that, for example, you want to draw a winner, okay, out of that box or out of that number, and you want to just have only one winner. And someone comes to you and say, hey, could you write me a program that can generate, for example, 2 million numbers for me, and these 2 million numbers should not be repeated. And the way that you're gonna do that is through a function called randperm. Randperm. What randperm is, if you remember in probability, there's a permutation and combination. So the permutation is where when you have different options which cannot be repeated. So each one of these options should be unique. But in combination, you're fully able to do that. You can have repeated items. Here, I type a number like 5. And if I hit enter, you will see that 5 numbers are created, which no one is the same. If I do that, not the same, not the same, and not the same. Another part that we might need to work with is when you need a vector which has all ones or zeros. Okay, occasionally you might need only a vector which has ones. All right, so ones, if I do that, it asks me how many you need, and I will say 7. If I do that, it just creates, this is for matrices, my bad, ones. So if I go with that, I should select 1 and 3. If I do that, you see that the results are created. The ones that we had here also used in matrices a lot, and we will cover all this stuff later. But for now, just remember that if you wanted to create a vector, because this chapter is dedicated to vectors, I want to give you examples that are only for vectors. But you can just extend that to anything, just explore everything you see here. My advice to you is that just explore everything that you learn here and try to make things different for yourself. Explore that what happens if I do this parameter, I change it like that. Okay, and we do also have zeros of 1 and 5, for example, and it will create for me, or zeros of 1 and 3, and I do that. It might be hard for me to explain where do you need this stuff, but my point here is to show you how you can generate and automate your work rather than sitting down and create like rows with 100 items. And when we get into programming section, I will show you a lot of examples that you can, that these functions come handy, and you can explore them by yourself. One more function which is handy sometimes, and you might have used it in Excel, is the sort function. So let me clear the screen. Rand perm. I'm just going to create a random permutation of, let's say, 5. Okay, I created that. Now I want to sort it in a way that it's in ascending order. So if I say A equals sort of, before doing that, let me do it professionally. I create a function called, a variable called A, and then I create a new one called B equals to sort of A. Okay, and if I do that, you'll notice that now it's created 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, which is in ascending order. Hope you used the functions along with me and learn how to combine them as well. See you in next video.